Guy that wore that Canadian jersey proudly, left blood, sweat, and tears out there. Joining us right now from the west coast of Canada, Carlo Corazzin. Carlo, welcome.
Anthony, how are you?
I'm pretty ticked off, to be honest. I haven't slept in about 4 or 5 days, but hey, that's what it means to be a Canadian soccer fan. That's what it means to be a former Canadian soccer player like you. Carlo, let's get right at it. I mean, we don't need to slice and dice up the game last night. We know what happened. We saw what happened. Mexico didn't even do their part. We didn't even talk about that. But I want to talk about head coach Benito Floro first and foremost with you, and then the future about a Canadian soccer league coast to coast, the vital importance of it. Let's talk about Benito Floro. Were you as befuddled and shaking your head like I was on some of the substitutions in this qualifying round, in some of the selections?
Absolutely, Anthony. I mean, to me, last night's game, you're absolutely right. Last night's game, yes, was it relevant? Yes, was it important? Yes, from a certain point of view, those things were important. But at the end of the day, last night's game was a microcosm of everything Benito has done in his 3 years here. I thought he started with square pegs and round holes right off the hop. I thought there was not enough urgency from the bench to change things when he needed to. I thought the changes he made were very questionable. When you need 2 more goals, you take off your 2 goal scorers and replace one with a center back. Fair enough, people will say, well, Edgar came on and scored anyway. But that's besides the point. And just the way he set the whole thing up for these guys. And, you know, I went on with Scott Rintoul on TSN 1040 here after the game, and I said to Scott, I said, I'm frustrated. And he says, I can tell. And I said, because for me, I don't believe those boys gave every single ounce they had last night, but they were not put in a position to succeed to the point that they needed to because of the way they were put out there.
Correct. And that's why, to me, I'm not blaming the players this time around. I'm sorry, I can't. The last World Cup qualifying, it's all on them, not on Stephen Hart. I'm sorry. This time around, a lot of blame has to go to Benito Floro. You put me a defensive midfielder, Piet, on when you need goals. For what reason? Like, it's absolutely befuddling to me. Carlo, on top of that, I don't understand. You don't call me up a Michael Petrasso, some young blood. You don't call me up Fraser Aird. You don't call me up Adekube. You don't call me up Jonathan Osorio for whatever personal conflict you have, if you did. And if you didn't, why don't you call him up? Like, I don't understand this guy.
And you left out Will Johnson.
And Will Johnson, okay. But, you know, like the arrogance, Carlo, the old school mentality. I started to see the players tune him out at the Gold Cup. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think you're spot on, and I think it was very evident. And from what I'm hearing from people that were on the sidelines, they had tuned him out. They had sort of turned a blind eye to certain things. But again, I'm not laying this on the players because, again, I have played. I've been in those positions. But even let's go back one game, even the Honduras game. Why on God's green earth he's going to Honduras at 36 degrees and 90+% humidity? Are we high pressuring in Honduras? You go and get a great goal. Excellent. Now, I'm sorry, at that stage, be Canadian, go and park the bus and defend for your lives, and the worst case scenario, you come out of there with a draw. Now, all of a sudden, the game in Vancouver, that you have the knife by the handle, means everything, and you actually have a realistic possibility. I look back to the El Salvador game where they drew 0-0. That's the game he should have gone high pressure. They were playing a youth team in an empty stadium, and El Salvador was in a shambles at that time, and it wasn't even that hot, and we sat back and just about lost that game if it isn't for Borjan making a great foot save. So there's too many things, Anthony, along the way that, to me, shout out, Benito really does not have a grip on CONCACAF. And that's my biggest bone to pick, is that they put a guy in charge that really does not have a grip on what it means to play in CONCACAF.
So
we have great coaches that are qualified that, as you put it, went through blood, sweat, and tears with me that are sitting on the sideline that would do, and I don't buy this. Like, I've seen guys say, well, any other coach I don't think would have got more out of this group of.
Well, that's garbage, Carlo. Carlo, that's garbage, because I believe for a fact, in my heart of hearts, I believe that's garbage. You put me a Bob Bradley in there, a Bruce Arena who knows CONCACAF, we're going to the Hex. We might not get to the World Cup, but we're going to the Hex.
100%. And so when I go back, and this might be a little long-winded, but you have to hear me out here, Anthony. So the biggest success, even though I was at the 2000, for me, is Canada qualifying in 86. Okay? People can say what they want to say about Bob Lenarduzzi. He experienced that qualifying campaign. When he went and became the national team manager, with a group of guys that was me, hard helmet, lunch bucket guys, we were ranked way up there, into the 50s, even lower at some stage, I think. If the amount of teams that qualify now out of CONCACAF was back then, we would have qualified for 2 World Cups. It's changed. I understand that it's different. So Bobby experienced it as a player, got to do it as a national team coach. It's time now, and I'll go on record, and I've said I'm going to beat this drum till it's dead. It's time now for Mark Watson and Nick Dasovich to be given the reins to pass on the experience that those guys did, not only as players, now they've gone and both coached, head coach in the MLS, both have been assistants in the MLS, and both have coached for Canada.
Right, but you know what, Carlo, with all due respect, and I was with Nicky Dasovich in the Canadian Soccer League with North York Rockets. I have a special place in my heart with Nicky Dasovich. He's not ready. He's not ready. My heart of hearts, in my opinion. I'll tell you why.
Now?
Because he's not ready. A Bob Bradley's ready. A Bruce Arena's ready. You don't want to go this time around in the next World Cup qualifying with maybe he's ready or he'll get. No, I don't want that. I want a concrete guy that's done it.
But Anthony, I'm telling you right now, the Bob Bradleys, and no disrespect, as a coach, 100%. Is he ready? Would he? Yes, but those people, and Anthony, that's why I say, and I'm not disrespecting anybody that's not played for Canada at any level, they do not understand the dynamics within Canadian soccer. You can't come here and think, I'm going to run it like the U.S. You can't come here and think, I'm going to run it like Spain. It doesn't work.
I agree, Carlo, but you also have to give the next head coach of Canada's men's national team full control. Full control. Not half control, not 3/4 control. They need full control. Carlo, look, my blood pressure's at 1,000,000. You're a former player. You've left it all out there. I've cried tears watching the Gold Cup. I understand that you're invested as much as I am and very few others. But to me, look, there's many things that to me I would have done differently. I'm a sideline coach, that's fine. But let's move on from that. Let's talk about what I believe is vital moving forward now, Carlo. I believe we need a league for our own coaches, our own players, our own administrators, our own trainers in this country. God bless the Whitecaps, TFC in Montreal, but why should we ask them to take our Canadian players if they don't feel that they're good enough or they don't want them? You know, I can't force them to, so it's time for our own league. Agree or not?
100%. The CSL, for whatever people want to say about it, and for the era, was a perfect spot. And this came up after the press conference last night as well. A few of us hung around and talked. And I said, if you want me to go through the list of players that from the age of 18 to 22, 24 couldn't find Europe or couldn't find the perfect scenario, it was a great place to play. Did we make peanuts? Yes. Did we travel on a budget? Yes. But it was a place to go and hone your skills. So I can list, and, you know, Bunbury, Petrosolito, Corazzin, Dasovich, Watson, the list, Catliff, Mobilio, like, I could go on and on and on. Paul Fennick, all these guys that ended up playing for Canada in a very significant role, all honed their skills in the old CSL. Now, can they go about it a little bit different? Yes, they can. And out west, I know they talk about the WHL model. Well, I have no problem with that. I have no problem with that. Have it regionalized and only meet at the end of the season. But they need to do that, not only for the players, but for the coaches to hone their skills as well, so that we all grow as a soccer nation.
Carlo, we need everyone on board this time. To me, this is the last kick at the can. Look, I've seen Canada play in a World Cup. I have VHS tapes of that. I have VHS tapes, Carlo, when Canada and Bobby Lenarduzzi in the middle of the morning were going up against Australia in kicks to get us into the next round. I'm invested deeply in this. I want to watch a World Cup with Canada in it, with my son side by side in our Canada jerseys. To me, I need everyone on board. And what I mean by that is this, Carlo. I'm sick and tired of the youth clubs, the academies, the districts, the provincial bodies, the national bodies. Everyone squabbling, everyone arguing, everyone saying, I have the answer. No, you're wrong. I have the answer. Everyone saying, I need money, but you have more. Give me some. Shut the flip up. I want to see a World Cup.
100%. And I said this last night as well on the pre-match, is what does everybody talk about in Canada that's football invested? Is everybody talks about the 86 World Cup. Nobody cares how they got there. If they did it in a pretty football style or beautiful game style, doesn't matter. All that they want us to do is qualify. And the sad thing is, Anthony, is we're not even talking about qualifying anymore. We're talking about how do we get to the Hex, which is sad because now in CONCACAF we have more direct qualifications for the World Cup than we've ever had. And we're that much further back. So we need to really readdress things. I think the appointment of Jason DeVos is very good. And this is why I'm going to, and I know you're going to think I'm harping, this is why I'm going to go back to the Dasovic, or the Watson-Dasovic combination. I think it should be Waddy head coach and Dasso assistant. And I'll tell you why. So if Jason gets started, the fruits of his labors, they're not going to be right away, but eventually they're going to come through. Those guys played together as well. Now, the connections that Watson Dasovic have, i.e. even just with the guys that are now coaches in Scotland, England, where our players go and play in the MLS, the connection those guys can have with those coaches and say, listen, I'm not going to need him right now for this friendly, but you know what? I need him fit and ready to play at this date because we have a huge qualifier. Those connections are vital, and they're going to be all over. You've got Martin Nash now out in Ottawa. There's another connection for those two guys. It all becomes, it's all kind of aligning, and that's why I'm saying to you, I know you don't think they're ready. Trust me, I know these guys. I know these guys inside and out. They've been in those trenches. Waddy was Dasso's assistant at the U20s. Waddy was Frank's assistant. So they've gone through it. They know it. They would not go, I'm telling you right now, and this isn't to pick Benito apart, they wouldn't go and have a warm-up game before a qualifier in Austria. Why in Austria? What does Austria simulate to going into Honduras? Those guys wouldn't make that error. And that's what I'm trying to say. Those are the little things that matter. Doing all the little things along the way. And I'm going to even go out there. You go and you turn around and you say to those guys, we're going to give you 2 cycles and the rest of this. That's 10 years. By that time, DeVos will have implemented his grassroots. So if he takes 12, 13, 14-year-olds, in 10 years from now, guess 8 to 10 years from now, those guys are prime-ready guys.
Carlo, the last point I want to talk to you about is this before we let you go. To me, the only credit I'll give Benito Floro is this, is that, yes, as our previous guest, Dino Rossi, mentioned, he brought defensive stability to the Canadian team. We never got blown out like we got blown out in years past, which I thank him for that. And I think that was a good mentality that he brought to this team. But I also believe in my heart of hearts that we're still stuck in the dark ages of Canadian soccer where it's kick and run, kick and run, kick and run. We need to start understanding how to play the game with possession, with thinking, and not the kick and run that has been ingrained in so many of our youth players for years and years and years. This, to me, has to stop, Carlo.
100%, and that is where Jason, given the time and the energy and the finances, will get it right. Because we've had lots of chats, him and I, with other ex-pros, and we agree. But the one thing that is a very, very fine line, Anthony, and I'm going to say this, is we will never be Brazil. So people need to really understand that. Can we and should we and will we get better technically? 100% we will once they start implementing the right things at grassroots. But our fiber as a Canadian soccer player is defensively sound, attack all your free kicks and set pieces in the offensive box, and be absolutely the hardest working team in the world.
I agree with you 100%. I agree. I totally agree, Carlo.
It has to get better.
Carlo, I totally agree. Listen, we thank you so much for making time out of your busy schedule. We want to have you back on again. But, Carlo, I got to tell you, for the last 30 years of my life, maybe even more, I'm almost more than 30, 40, I should say, close to 40 anyway, I've been ridiculed, laughed at, made jokes about because of my support of the Canadian national team. And I've said this, and this is the other problem in this country, Carlo. I got to let you go, but we'll talk about this another time. I said this time and time again. If Canada were ever in my lifetime to get to World Cup to play Italy in my house, there wouldn't be an Italian jersey to be found. We'd all have Canadian jerseys, and I could give a rat's behind about Italy. I care about the country I live in. And this is the other problem here, Carlo. Too many people fly the flag of Portugal and Italy and England instead of flying the Canadian flag. Carlo, thank you so much. Time is our worst enemy. We thank you so much. We'll get you back on in the future, my friend.
Anytime, Anthony.